Well, we might as well start, even though it's 4 minutes and 30 seconds early.
Good morning,
Okay.
Mr. Moody.
Morning.
We have a quorum. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
So moved.
Everybody in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll go to the first action item. Approval of design services task order.
While we're getting that pulled up, I wanted to say a few quick words of introduction. Just to remind the committee that back in May at the board retreat, we touched on this item at a very high level toward the end of the day. Just really kind of recollecting the original construction of Trap Rock and the original intent for expansion, some of the work that we've done since starting up the facility in 2018 to prepare for this expansion. And then we concluded that item with a tour of the facility to really help the members get boots on the ground and take a look at some of the areas that we'll be touching with this expansion program. And so, here we are today. We've been working on the preliminary engineering over the last many months, and this item is going to take phase 2 to the final design phase. And we have Jessica Edwards, our Director of Water Operations, and Savita, Director of Capital Programs. And really just wanted to say, this highlights the partnership that we try to create here with operations and our capital programs team to really deliver projects in the most successful way possible. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to them.
Great.
Do we do this intro real quick? Yeah. So we're here today asking for an approval for a design task order for the second design task order in the phase 2 expansion for Trap Rock.
Okay. Okay. Good morning. So I think you're all familiar with the location of Trap Rock, where it is related to our central distribution system. So we'll go through that. Also, just want to give you, you're all probably familiar with this too, but just a quick background on our on Land Water Central System supply. So we have an agreement with Fairfax Water where we purchase 50 million gallons a day. We can purchase 50 million gallons a day from them. We have the ability to treat 20 million gallons a day from the Trap Rock facility. That water comes from the Potomac River. We have a permit to only withdraw 40 million gallons a day from the Potomac River, but we can only treat 20 through the Trap Rock facility at this time. And then we also have an emergency connection with the Goose Creek Reservoir, so we can also pump water from Goose Creek to the Trap Rock facility under an emergency scenario. And then obviously we are all very excited about the quarry, Milestone Reservoir, and so we're waiting patiently for that resource to come online for us. So that will also be a supply and will be part of our normal operating routine, right? So we have, we will most likely, under normal circumstances, pump from the river into the quarry and then to Trap Rock. But we do have the ability to modify those operations as needed. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the project drivers for this expansion project. Really two main goals with this project. One is meeting system demands, and the other is maintaining resiliency. So we put together a graph here that shows some scenarios of what our system demands could look like. So I'll walk through this figure for you, and then feel free to ask any questions as we go. So the x-axis is time, right? So starting in 2015 to 2050. And then the y is million gallons of water, million gallons a day. The two dotted lines our average day demand and max day demand based on data that we've acquired up through 2024. So if we just look at 2030 as a date for fun, we're looking pretty good, right? We've got on our average day demand, that lower dotted line, we're around 35 million gallons a day in 2030. Our max day is a little bit higher, right? It's around 60. So then we wanted to look at another scenario, which is sort of like an extreme case, looking at all of the data that we've got up through 2025 based on what we think development might be within the area and project it out. And so the red line that you see across there is our threshold system supply. So we can really only supply 70 million gallons a day in the system. So again, looking at the year 2030, we're kind of bumping up against that threshold, right? So again, this is an extreme case. These numbers are going to change, right? But we just wanted to hit home that we are, as good engineers, always wanting to plan ahead and make sure that we're prepared for future demands. And then the second part of this is we also want to maintain our resiliency. If there is ever an issue with Fairfax Water and we weren't able to rely on them, we want to make sure that we are able to fully utilize Milestone Reservoir to meet capacities as well. Any questions on that?
I know this is an, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, I have a question. For the last several meetings, we talk about ARCs coming from data centers, and I know most of them use reclaimed water, but at some point, I guess there is a discussion that they will use water from our reservoirs, but I don't see really any blips or increases in the 2015 to 2024, where I see sort of the rapid increase that I would expect to hear from what we've discussed about data centers.
Yeah, I think so that this is like a modeling of what we think the data looks like. So we won't be able to like get to the granular sort of like the blip, like the.
So going past.
So going past sort of 2025, that's modeling data, right? So we're.
But to the left of 2025.
But to the left of 2020. Oh, okay, sorry.
I think also when we talk about ERCs, we're talking about financial payments. That doesn't translate
Yes.
directly in the same year as service that we're providing,
Right.
right? It's just
Yeah.
that they've now reserved that capacity in the
Capacity,
system.
yeah.
So one example would be the power plant came in for up to 1 million gallons a day. But that's only going to be certain lengths of time and they have other resources. So how would that affect a chart like this?
So we would be like, so that would impact it when we're looking at average day versus max day, right? Okay.
There's probably one additional nuance because it's fresh on our minds with the recent presentations on the reclaim system. If you recall, Kendra shared a lot of the modeling that she looks at in terms of you don't always see these data center demands as linear or additive. There's a lot of variability to when they do their individual peaking. And so you might expect this all to just stack up and there be a, almost vertical line, so to speak, but that's not necessarily what we see in the daily operation. So just another piece of the puzzle to think about.
I just wanted to add one more kind of piece to that the reclaimed water is really just down here along Loudoun County Parkway. So we're having to support the JLMA TPA all off of potable water. But even right now, we're about 50-50 in people who use potable and use reclaimed. So just to give you, a little context, right now we're 50-50, but because we don't offer reclaimed up there, it will be more on the potable now.
In addition, the water, the service will be provided by TRAP, right? Versus being sort of backfilled from Fairfax on the other side.
And while we're entertaining some questions, you mentioned that we can take a certain amount, 15 million gallons from Fairfax, but we can take up to 40 million gallons out of the Potomac. We can't treat that much. Can we transfer, if we needed it, to have Corbliss process that water?
You mean the raw water?
The raw water?
No.
Oh, too
No.
bad.
Well, but Corbliss doesn't have a limit like we do, right? They're grandfathered in, so they don't.
Yeah, no, they can withdraw as much as they need to, but their plant has a capacity, right?
And,
Yeah.
and we help fund that plant.
Correct.
I have a question that probably can't be answered. But just in general, do you have an idea of how many days we can exist before we're into real trouble? Do you ever talk about that? as a background?
Yes, all the time. So with Milestone Reservoir, when that comes online, we have a lot of flexibility. Like, I think based on system demands, we can go like 30 days. If there were an issue, we could rely on just that reservoir for supply. Without that, we are strapped, right? We can only, if we can't pull from the Potomac River, we have about 24 hours within our distribution system to maintain water.
And how much from Beaver Dam Reservoir?
And then, oh, yes, yes, forgive me, yes, Beaver Dam Reservoir, also around the 30-day mark as well. Yeah.
Technically, up to 60 days.
Yep. Yeah.
Pretty good.
I mean, I realize that it depends on demand and a whole bunch of factors. I was just curious if there was a general goal, but that's what you're.
You know, I would elaborate slightly just to say that when we were given our permit from DEQ, it was based on extensive modeling of flows in the Potomac River going back to what they consider the drought of record in the 1930s. So the volume of water that we were required to have stored would be enough to sustain our demands through that type of drought of record. And we've actually studied a lot of those Potomac River records even further. And in more recent decades, like the 1960s to present, you know, daily data has shown that it would be extremely rare for an extended period where the river drops below thresholds that even require us withdrawals from Milestone Reservoir. So there's a lot of resilience built into these facilities that we feel a lot of confidence we've been able to kind of dig in and understand our risk.
Any more questions?
Always.
Okay. Well, feel free to stop us. I'm getting over COVID. I have a cough. It seems to only act up when I talk a lot. So just forgive me if I have to pause here and there. Okay, so moving on, and we've shared some of these slides with you before. It's, I think, worth going over again. So our current expansion right now is to take trap from 20 to 32.8 MGD. This is largely going to be accomplished through re-rating of a lot of the facilities. This has been approved by BDH. And during the original design of the plant, this step was expected. So while we are re-rating some of the facilities, we do have some upgrades that need to be done to certain unit processes. We'll kind of go through those in a high level. So this was our original project scope of work, and I think if you've looked at the presentation ahead of time, you'll see that we are expanding our scope somewhat in this second design task order. So our original elements included adding lamps to the UV reactors, adding a new permanganate facility out at the raw water pump station, expanding our sulfuric acid facility and a sodium hypochlorite facility, adding only one new finished water pump, and then a whole bunch of other items throughout the plant, additional recycled pump capacity, some hydraulic and surge upgrades, and then some SCADA and electrical improvements and other O&M improvements throughout the facility. So this was kind of the general scope for what we originally thought the design was going to look like and what we brought forward in the first design task order. So to date, this is where we are. We have coordinated with BDH. We've confirmed that they're approving our design variances. We've completed the preliminary engineering report. We've brought drawings to a 30% level, done some preliminary equipment sizing, hydraulic modeling, done some preliminary permit coordination, and then also put together our first kind of set of construction cost estimates and construction schedules. So we're sort of at the 30% design level for that original scope of work. But we actually have decided to add some scope to this project, and these are the three primary categories under UV treatment, ozone treatment, and then finished water pumping. So initially, we were going to add lamps to the existing UV reactors. We've since learned that the current reactors are not going to be really well supported by the manufacturer moving forward. And so we've decided to take the opportunity to replace those reactors, and we're actually going to increase the capacity. So And these next three items that I'm talking about, these are all were items that were envisioned for the third phase of expansion. So it's not really new work. We're just kind of bringing forward work that we had been planning to do in the future. So the new UV reactors will give us more capacity and it'll kind of position us for future expansion. With the ozone treatment, we were not planning to do any additional work to that system, but have since decided to provide us some more redundancy and operational flexibility. We're actually going to add a new ozone unit, same one as the ones that are currently existing. And then with the finished water pumps, we were going to only add one pump, and we've decided to add a second one to provide, again, more reliability and resiliency for our distribution system.
So you're having two of most everything. Are we going to have two of the UV treatment or just the single one?
I'll let you answer that.
So there are 2B reactors.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and we need two for 40 MGD, for sure. We can get by with one.
Two gives you resiliency.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving just into the general scope of work, this scope really takes us from kind of the 30% through bid documents, plans and specifications. We'll have cost estimating at each deliverable and then an update of the construction schedule. We also, for the UV, are going to do an investigation of all of the current UV manufacturers and select a preferred manufacturer to design around. And CDM will also provide pre-procurement assistance for us. Those are long lead time items. And we actually would like to get those installed ahead of kind of finishing the rest of the work so that we can have like an early milestone for that work and allow the operators in the plant to really get a handle on that system early. We also have site investigations and geotechnical investigations, some updates to our water model, and then updating the record drawings for the plant as well. We've decided to use CDM Smith. They are the original engineer of record for the plant. They also completed the first design task order, so just makes sense to continue with them, and they provided really good service to us to date. Any questions on this? Pretty standard design scope for us.
For the CDM Smith, there's many of the same people who've been working for years, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah, some of the original designers, right, Jessica, I think are on this project. So just a high level, these are the sort of broad buckets of task order activities. We've got project management, design services, and other services. I think we've kind of talked about most of these things. On the UV side, they will prepare a technical memorandum for us with the recommended supplier, and then we'll kind of work through that and then prepare the design for us. We have, for this task order, elected to not include permitting and bid phase services in this task order, which is something that we typically do. We're not going to go to permitting until next spring. And so we wanted to give ourselves a little bit of time to kind of right size the scope as we move through design. So we will come back with another task order asking for permitting and bid phase services.
You have to get an FAA permit?
We do. I think this is related to cranes being used for the construction.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
in the flight path of.
I think it's,
We hope not.
is it Leesburg? I think it's Leesburg. I think it's the Leesburg Airport, not Dulles.
Yeah, it's over
Oh.
200 feet.
Yeah, yeah. And then here's our fee breakdown, so you can see the bulk of the money is in the design line item. There is one subconsultant, RDA, who will perform the survey and geotechnical investigations on behalf of CDM Smith. And the total design fee for all of the task orders for this project, so not just this one, but the first one and our anticipated amount for the permitting and bid phase is about 8% of the estimated construction cost. So well within what we would expect for a project of this size.
One question.
Sure.
Is RDA doing geotech now, or are they carrying a geotech?
That's a good question. We can ask Matt. Is RDA doing the geotech or they have a sub? Is it a sub to a sub?
I do believe they are performing the geotech,
Okay.
yes.
No, I didn't know they offer those services. I know that it's survey, but
And then here is our project schedule. So we're at the red star. We expect this second design task order to take approximately a year and a half. Then we'll move into bid phase and construction. Right now is looking at about 24 months, but obviously we'll update that schedule throughout the design.
So at 2030, at the end of this, what will the capacity be?
32.8,
32.8.
Yeah.
Not 40, but 32.
not 40. We'll get to 40 soon enough. And then here is our CIP snapshot. So we're kind of pulling funding right now from both phases, from phase 2 and phase 3, since we are bringing forward some of the work that we had anticipated in phase 3. So this is our full budget. And then, of course, this will be updated each year as we go through the CIP process. And with that, we have the motion.
Any more questions?
Oh, it's
no, thank you.
a good presentation. Thank you.
I'll make the motion. I move the recommendation to the board to award a design task order for Trap Rock Water Treatment Facility Phase 2, expansion design task 2 to CDM Smith for $2,281,647 with an approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $2,400,000. Additional costs will require board approval, and I'm recommending that we put this on the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passed.
Thank you.
The next item is the capital construction quarterly report.
All right, so we're due two highlights on our admittedly smaller projects this time around, giving some of our larger projects a chance to get through commissioning and hopefully report on completion of those next quarter. Then we'll deep dive into milestone and wrap it up with the financial and status report. This is actually another smaller project for the Trap Rock facility, for the water treatment facility. We are installing a pre-purchased generator. There's a picture of the generator coming off of its sort of storage area within the plant, and it is now sitting inside the facility, getting all the hookups for its fuel and silencer, electrical and whatnot. So the project's going well so far. Original contract value 1.3, value through the third quarter 158,200. The slow start with that was expected while the contractor got everything in order. And since the generator itself was pre-purchased, that's why you see such a low number in comparison to the progress, to the amount of time that's elapsed. But we expect that construction will wrap up in the spring of next year. And hopefully that'll add some redundancy and resiliency to the auxiliary power generation for the facility.
Still seems unique to me that we have to have that generator when we sit next to one of the most efficient generating plants in Virginia. But it's required.
Moving on, this is a project to upgrade the water booster station at Dulles South and enhance its level of service. This one is being constructed by WGK for original contract value of 2.2. Approaching the commissioning phase on this project, the contractor admittedly dragged his feet a little bit on submitting a commissioning plan. So we're working with him through those issues, but not a substantial delay, maybe a couple of months to the delay of the completion while we sort that out. And hopefully we have a smooth commissioning phase to wrap this one up in the fourth quarter. And on to milestone, still on schedule. As you know, being constructed by Clark, who has now completed the excavation and lining of all tunnels and the installation of the larger diameter piping for supplying raw water and transmitting back to the Trap Rock facility. Ongoing work, installation of the pump shaft concrete lining, construction of the bridge over the Sickleton Creek, construction of the pump station structure itself, which you can see a glimpse of here in the picture, and installation of utilities and site improvements, which is going to be ongoing with the construction of the pump station itself. We are up to $3 million in change orders for the third quarter of 2025, which revises the contract value to 148. And that is 3 out of our contingency of 7.26 million. The value of work through the third quarter, 72 million, which represents about 50% spent, which is pretty well reflective of progress of the project itself. Time elapsed 40%, like I said earlier, well ahead of schedule, and still hoping to complete the work in May of 2028. Do we have any questions on this?
On the change orders, are all those owner requested ads or?
No, they are not. So there is a pretty good mix of differing site conditions from earlier on in the job when we were encountering the typical surprises that one encounters with large excavations. There is a substantial component of this $3 million that's for substituting a low-performing subcontractor. We brought a new subcontractor on board to get things going and really try to hit those electrical milestones later on in the job. There's going to be an offsetting credit that'll largely wipe out a lot of this $3 million back down to where we were looking at it a little over 1 for the last quarter. So that's due to be reflected on the next quarterly report here. And really that's so not necessarily, what would I call that? I would probably call that hard to say. Let's call it an owner request, but it's really an owner request driven by performance issues. So not the typical type of,
Is there any
So
legal
Chief,
action anticipated?
So no, right now we are collaborating with Clark. There
I mean,
is
from the subcontractor.
right. We're trying to make it work so that there is nothing on the backside of this that triggers any sort of legal action. So there might be some compensation for some work performed before the cancellation. It is a lever that we can pull from our general conditions. Our contract does allow us to request these types of changes in these types of circumstances. So nothing really that's extraordinary in terms of the mechanisms that have been employed. So anyone can take action, but it would be something against Clark, which contractually there's no real basis for it to trickle up to us, if that makes sense.
Mr. Moody has a question.
Mr. Moody?
Yeah, you mentioned a low-performing subcontractor. Do we have a mechanism to keep track of low-performing, particular subcontractors that are not always obvious because you have the primary main contract? So do we have any way to keep track of so we're not having to deal with these low-performing subcontractors in the future? Do we track them in some database or some way to make sure, try to mitigate a concern like this happening in the future?
We currently do not. However, for specific types of work, and of course, this is a sort of a unique case because it is a CMAR and it is our first CMAR project of this magnitude, right? But if we were to say have an exotic scope of work that we really thought was very important to get right, I think we would probably pre-qualify to make sure that we vet the competition that's up for that work. We would probably have experience references, submission of qualifications, and try to limit the specified subcontractors to those pre-qualified companies.
Yes. So I'm sure that you watch every subcontractor very closely through all the inspection processes. So I have a lot of confidence in our systems. But I keep looking at that date, May 2028. That's 2.5 years from now. And we're halfway through the spend. And a lot of the hard work's been done, meaning the rock.
Right.
But this is a big part of our resiliency. Is there any way that's going to come in early?
I am not ready to make that promise just yet.
I understand, but you're working towards it.
But in terms of the risk profile for the overall work, where we saw the most risk was obviously on the geotechnical portion of the work, and all of the dicey work there is done, right? So we didn't drain the Goose Creek into our excavation or anything crazy like that. So from here on out, knock on wood, I see the remainder of the work as sort of the bread and butter, construction of a pump station. We do quite a few of those every decade, let's say. There's no part of the remainder of the work, save for maybe the AB tunnel plug that contains
Oh, yeah.
the reservoir water inside inside the reservoir so it doesn't drain over to the adjacent quarry B, right? That's the only other thing I could think of that could really trip us up in any sort of substantial way. So hopefully it's smooth sailing from here.
I would say related to that too is also just the wall itself, right? Right, we didn't have a way to test seepage through the AB wall. And that is part of the commissioning, right? We will see
Yeah.
how much actually seeps through just the wall itself, not the plug, but the wall. So barring any major issues with that, we've passed the riskiest parts of the project.
How far up on the plug will the water go? I have visualized that.
A couple dozen feet. It,
Couple
it, it
dozen
will
feet.
be subject to some hydrostatic
25
pressure
feet, it will
from
be, yeah.
it, but for what it's worth, I can't remember the name of the storm, but there was a hurricane within the last 10 years that filled it.
Yeah.
There wasn't any real reported major seepage into the adjacent quarry then, so it would have to be something that developed more frequently. So we are hoping to sort of bank on the fact that that's reflective of what we'll see when we start a controlled fill of the reservoir.
Let's hope we don't get a hurricane like that that makes the Goose overflow its banks.
Yes,
So
let's hope.
So,
that's
thank you.
So this is the typical, summary we have for the different sort of portions of administration work. And here is the status of all of the capital projects for the third quarter. No real surprises, obviously seeing that little bit of contingency jump on Milestone, which should come back down next quarter, but still holding pretty steadily on that sort of sub 2% for the change orders as a portion of its original contract value, of their original contract value. So I'll pause here and see if there's any other questions. Run expansion phase 2 completed within the last quarter, so it's the sole item on this list here.
Good.
And then lots of activities scheduled for the next 6 months. So this report here covers through the second quarter of 2026. So some pretty good projects to look forward to there for the first half of the year.
Where is the sewer replacements? Where is, I don't know that area. Third one down.
Davis Drive?
Yeah,
Oh,
I believe that's Sterling.
where?
I believe that's in Sterling.
anything else?
Nope, I just wonder when the water main replacement along Belmont Ridge will be on your list.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna still be a little while since we just brought forward the design task order. It'll be at least probably another year. So we'll get there though.
Oh, I know. It just seems things take longer than,
They do.
yeah.
That's all I got.
You have a lot on your plate.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, let's go on to, it's somewhat connected. I recently came back from out west. I took a raft trip on the Colorado River. And it's scary when they point out how much that river is down. They show the watermarks along the canyons. And I don't think we realize how lucky we are. To see it in front of you is scary, literally. It's, and here we're talking about feet of water, all kinds of water. We don't realize how lucky we are. So just a comment. Okay, Tom Lipinski, Capital Spending Summary Report.
Thank you. Good morning. I'll walk through the capital expenditures through the end of September. We've spent 92.7 million. The revised projection was just shy of 102 million. So you see a slight drop in spending from August into September, and it's really just due to some just delays in invoicing on a few of the larger projects. So I expect that in the next month or so, we'll catch back up to the much closer to the projected line. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Not like you to have that red line under the blue line.
We always try to stay under the blue line.
Under the blue line's fine.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess that's, unless I'm missing something, that's it.
The tentative agenda for the joint meeting?
We don't normally,
Discuss it? Okay.
unless you have some comment on it, we don't know.
Nope, I think it's gonna be a good meeting.
Yeah. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
All
We
right.
are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And thank you for handling the shades. It was blinding me.